I think the fact that he's a drug dealer and getting you to do drops for his drugs and like that, I think that's a funny angle, and that you're exchanging, literally risking everything unbeknownstly for free haircuts, right? Like,
Today we talk about. So why don't I transition that into how do you feel about like workshopping a joke right here, right now?
Okay,
yeah, do that?
Yeah.
Let's try this because maybe I'll incorporate this into like a regular segment here because I feel like with writing, I almost considered making this like its own show. And I've seen like, I don't know if you know Andrew Schultz, the comic. He literally does an entire YouTube show on this now where like he sits down with other comics and they bring like a very offensive topic and they try to find the funny in it and like, okay, how do we structure this joke so that it doesn't offend people and we get people to laugh? So like that's kind of his whole concept. For me, I'd like it to be even more bare bones. Like, how do I take this fucking story and make it funny?
Okay.
So let's try it, right? So this is a true story. I used to get haircuts.
Yeah.
No, okay. But no, I mean, I used to get like routine haircuts before I started to grow this bitch out. And what happened was I had this, so I could never find a good barber because every barber constantly would fuck up my hair. Like they could never get the hair right. And I'm kind of one of these shy, meek dudes. So I'm just sitting there after the haircut, like, yeah, it looks fine. Right. Finally, I find a barber that can cut my hair well. Right. And then all of a sudden I stopped hearing from him. I think he had a drug problem. I don't know. So there's that. Then I find this new barber, really nice guy. I think he was Indian too, actually. Really nice guy, super nice, did a good job. And then I got literally one or maybe two haircuts from this guy. Couple weeks go by and then I get a call from him because we're texting buddies now. Like I just text him, I tell him, yo, can I come in for a cut? He says, yeah. I'm like, yeah, dope. But now he texts me, he calls me, he goes, hey, listen, man, so my car got towed. Yeah, I think he said towed. And, you know, I need $40 or $80. I forget exactly what he said to get it out of the lot because I don't have any cash, man. Can you help me out? And I'm like, sure, why not? I get there and he's like, oh, actually, I need another 60 because it's going to be an additional day. So can you give me another 60? I'm like, all right, fine. So then weeks go by. I still haven't got my money back from this guy. And it becomes more and more clear, like, I'm not going to get my money back, right? So then I turned it basically into like not a mortgage, but like almost like a pay it back system where it's like, all right, I'm going to come in for my $20, $25 haircuts and we'll just pay it off over like 8, 9 haircuts, mm-hmm. right? So now I'm at like haircut 3 or 4 with this guy. And then this particular day he goes, hey man, do you mind giving me a ride home? Cause you know, I gotta, you know, I don't have my car. I'm like, all right, fuck it, whatever. And he tells me like, it's going to be a location that's on my way home to drop him off. But no, it's like way out of the way. And like, this guy's a nice guy. So I'm just sitting there talking, having a conversation with him. So I barely even noticed at first, but then eventually I'm like, dude, we're like way out of the way here. Next thing I know, we're in like not the projects, but like a really bad part of a separate town already. We're like way past where I thought I was taking him. And then he's like, yeah, you mind just waiting right here? So then he goes into this dilapidated house. And I'm like, wait a minute, did he just tell me to wait for him? What the fuck is going on here? Is this a drug deal? What's going on in there, right? 15 minutes, I guess, go by. And then I finally call him like, dude, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I got to go home. What are you doing? And he gets back in the car and he's like, yeah, sorry, man, sorry. And then we just go drive a little further back. And he's like, yeah, you mind just bring me back to the barbershop? I'm like, motherfucker, no. So I just dropped him off at the closest gas station. I was like, dude, I got to go, man. I literally have to leave. So then I went home. So I'm trying to find a way to turn this crazy fucking situation into a hilarious story. But like, you know, like, how would you even approach this? Are you looking to add like a little pop every 3 sentences? Like what's...
Dude, well, what I'd be like is I would just introduce. So I think the premise of you helping your hairdresser be a drug dealer. I think the fact that he's a drug dealer and getting you to do drops for his drugs and like that, I think that's a funny angle, and that you're exchanging, literally risking everything unbeknownstly for free haircuts, right? Like,
well, technically not free because he owed me.
He owed you, yeah, right. Like you're exchanging. It's like this barter system where okay, like yeah, I'm helping him get fronted on a package or whatever. Like you could have literally been a conspirator in that. I just think that right there would be the place where I would launch off of, and I. So
see, already you've taken it to a place that I didn't even think to take it. Like you're making me laugh at my own story, right? So that's good. Yeah, because I wouldn't have even thought to do that. But
yeah, I think that if you, because like with stories like that, the beats of that one aren't naturally beaty. So you want, like, there's some stories where there's like natural beats in them, right? Where I used to do cocaine and I played World of Warcraft. Like right there, like I could just go through the process of getting cocaine and then being a loser and then going and playing World of Warcraft, and like people are like, oh, that's funny, trigger words or whatever like that. And like I would think about where are the trigger words in the story as well. So like in terms of reference points, like, you know, like what's another way you could have described the projects, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like what are like 3 details of projects that everybody knows is a project, but like, you know, like you know, it's like one of the places, like, you know, elevators pee, you know, like I'm saying, like I just, if you can come up with how to describe that in a funny way. Also, I would focus on how you describe what kind of Indian he is. Like, is he like super, like, is he like an old grandpa Indian? You know what I'm saying? Is he a taxi driver Indian? Is he like a fuckboy Indian with a fucking haircut? Like, what kind of Indian dude is he that cutting your hair? Because like, that's funny. If it's like some old, like 60-year-old, like curry smelling.
No, it was like a 25-year-old, really nice guy.
Really nice guy.
Dates a white girl.
Yeah.
Just like a, yeah.
I would describe his outfit. Like I would get like describe like parts of him, so it puts an image in their head. Because like when you hear Indian guy, like I'm thinking like, is he Quickie Mart Indian guy?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because yeah, you're right. Maybe I shouldn't even say he's Indian. I should, for the story, I should be like, hey, some fucking what I thought was a nice guy, and I don't even have to give him.
I would actually add it at the end, right? Like, so it's like you're describing him. You know, one of those guys who wears like, you describe his outfit. You know, like low cut t-shirt. You know, fucking skinny jeans. You know, Indian guy. like there's a surprise. No one's seeing that coming, right? And so what I would do is I'd focus on clusters of details for those things, and then what details are funny, and then I drop them off at like what's an innocuous gas station like a weird
Sonico.
Well, yeah, like if there's like some weird like gas station, you could like a Buc-ee's, like if you're in the South, right? Like, you know, I dropped them at Buc-ee's and I fucking got out of there, you know, or even like, you know,
that's the other thing. What's the punch or what? Yeah, what's the punch line? What's the ending line?
Well, that's where your point of view, once you start cultivating it, will like take place of that, because then you'll be looking on where you want the story to end, right? Because like it doesn't even have to end with the story, right? It could just end with the insight you got from the shit, right? You know, like, and
yeah, I was telling another barber about this, and I was telling him the story, and he threw me a good line. He's like, yeah, anything for a haircut, huh?
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Like,
yeah,
which kind of fit very well, because I was like, yeah, dude, I always struggle finding a good barber. So that was something I was playing around with. But that's my problem. Like I told you earlier, I take things way too literally. So in my head, I'm like, how did the story start? How did the story end chronologically? And that's it. And then I'm stuck. Like, I don't think, okay, like literally you just went through like 8-9 different combinations of things that I never even thought to do. Because in my head, it was like, it started here at 3:00 and it ended here at 3:45. Like that's where my brain is just like in, you know?
Yeah. So I would just make it, I would make the story about fucking haircuts. I would remove the time component. I would get, what is this dude's fucking life? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I would just start like focusing on certain segments of the story. Right, you know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever been part of a drug deal and not known it? Like, that's you know, and right there, like, then they're already invested, right? And
yeah, I was gonna say that could be like a funny way to even just start an open mic. Be like, so you guys like haircuts? You ever been part of a drug deal? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Well,
and
this story's for you.
Yeah.
Buckle up. Yeah.
And the other thing that I wish I did more, but like. I want to do in the next segment of my like comedy and growing material is starting with the punchline and then writing out of that. Like, so like one of the new premises I'm working on is like, sometimes you got to cheat on your girlfriend to know that she's the one. And like, just like, that's like, I feel like that's a funny way.
That's the punchline?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but like just beginning at that, and then people, that's going to get a couple chuckles. Like people are going to be like, what? And then, you know, you're just like talking about like, yeah, because like the only way you actually know your like car or something is for you is if you've driven another car, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? And like, and so like, just kind of like playing with that idea and like, you know, just something like that, or like if God loves everyone, he has bad taste, like, and then like just something like that, and then you just work out of there.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm definitely quote ready for that yet, but yeah, that's a very powerful tool. Come up with the punchline first, and then work backwards. But then that also brings into factors like, all right, well, what's funny enough to be a punchline? And
well, I would say this is nothing. It's not anything that's gonna get everyone dying laughing like that. But it's like something where it's just like where people are gonna get their interest piqued, right? So being a wordsmith at the premise instead of being a wordsmith at the end, right? Because like sometimes, you know, you know, like for me, like Chris Rock is always like, let me make the premise really clear and then explain out of that. But sometimes you just have a ridiculous sounding thought, you know what I'm saying? And then that's going to get some people laugh. Some people are going to get their interest piqued, and then you're just going to work through that.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah, all right. Well, that was productive. Appreciate it. Damn it. I got a ways to go, man.
Dude, honestly, man, like, and I'll tell you this.
I hate writing. That's the other kind of flaw here, but yeah.
Well, dude, I got funnier when I stopped writing as much. When I just did exactly what you do. Like, I just write down something there and blah, 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 and then just not be too romantic about it. Because, like, here's the thing. Do you know how much of a sociopath you'd be in conversation is if you had written out an entire conversation and then gone and fucking recited it to somebody? And that's exactly what your face looks like when you do that shit sometimes. Like, your eyes, like, I remember I used to video record all my sets, and I would realize, oh, my eyes are jetting upwards. Well, the reason my eyes were jetting upwards was because I'm trying to remember what I'm saying, which is a very not authentic thing. It doesn't feel like it's coming from here, right? And so, like, for me, I will make a personal effort not to write down what I'm saying. And I would just write down a tagline of, oh, I think this is funny. Let me try to get into my space where this would be a funny thing, right? Like, one of the things I fucked up on yesterday was, like, about my cousin. She did die, and, like, I didn't say it authentically, but the whole thing was about, like, if I had been talking to her every day, I would feel a lot more bad about it. So, like, what's the point of keeping in touch with family? Like, that's where I wanted to take it, but I couldn't get into that headspace. And so it just wasn't funny, because sometimes that's the difference, is whether or not you're in a space of being that character who is going to make that joke funny.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, there's so many factors, man. And I'm slowly but surely learning a little more with each thing. And that's the other nice thing about going to shows is, like, I get to see better people doing these kinds of little tips, tricks, and little actions. And I'm like, oh, yo, I should work that into something.
Have you watched Godfrey perform?
Literally last night. Yeah.
Dude,
I was hanging out with him. Yeah.
Dude, he's fucking cool.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He fucking, like,
I met him on my flight home from Iowa once.
Really?
I was literally getting in line in Minneapolis to get back to New York, and this was literally, I didn't get to tell you about this. So you were talking about the creek and the cave, and, like, why am I trying to impress these fucks? I was literally going through that because that was literally the only open mic I'd ever heard of, because I had a friend that lived in Long Island City. That's literally the only reason he even knew about it. And I didn't know about freemics.com. I didn't know shit. And I just started comedy in Iowa. So that's where I started, actually. So so then I come back to New York. I'm like, let me try these New York mics. And I was intimidated. I was like, oh, it's New York. Ooh, you know. And then I go to Creek in the Cave. That's literally my first experience. And then I'm just like, yeah, maybe I'm not meant for comedy here. I'll just do comedy in Iowa. And I went back and told the Iowa comics that, I was like, dude, you are fucking stupid. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So then they kind of kicked my ass, and then they kind of gave me this new perspective. Like, you know what, dude? Were you a good doctor day one? No, this is you a decade later, and now you're just, like, doing the shit, right? But so that made perfect sense. I'm like, dude, I literally just started. What the fuck am I talking about? So with this newfound confidence to get back to New York and try again, who's on my flight home? Fucking this big jacked black guy right behind me. I'm like, are you Godfrey? And then we just started chopping it up, hanging out, and I literally saw him at the Cellar later that night. We hung out till like 6 a.m. with other comics that were there. It's fucking awesome, dude. Same thing last night. Went to see him again. We were hanging out. But yeah, he's a character, man.
Dude, he's a character. Yeah. He is so genuine, and he's so intense. And he controls the stage. One time I had to follow him at Stand Up New York, and I fucking ate a dick. Like, you know what I'm saying? I just it was trash, you know? Because, like, he gets up and does 15, and they have to follow him and do 15, and, like, they're just watching. It's like, I tell people it's like having to follow Mandingo in a train, you know what I'm saying? Like, because it was just, the audience was all stretched out, and then, you know, you have my regular ass dick in that shit, and I was like, man, fuck.
Here's the thing, though. I'm glad you brought that up. What's your opinion on that in terms of this? My whole thought is, because you said this earlier too, where, like, people don't want to bring funny people out with them on the road because blah, blah, blah. I'm of the opinion that, like, I want someone to kill the room right before I go on. I don't want someone shitting the bed right before I go on, because then that deflates the room, in my opinion. I don't know.
So, no, what I was talking about, so there's a difference between a competent comedian, a comedian who's going to be funny, but not too funny. Like, I have a friend who opened for Russell Peters. I won't mention his name because I don't want to throw him under the bus. And he was opening for him in Dubai, and murdered so hard. And Russell calls him back afterwards and is like, hey, that's the last time you're ever going to open for me. And because you never want to outshine the person that they came to pay and see.
That's fair, but also, isn't that on the headliner to be like, yeah, I got to step it up?
Yeah, but like a lot of headliners, niggas, they're comics a lot of times. You know, like a lot of, and you know, a lot of people should be like, oh man, this should inspire me to be my greatest self. But a lot of people are like, it's just ego, and they're like, oh, I could just get someone else who can just do a good job of somebody who's going to be an opening act and not outshine me. Right. And so, you know, it's like that nuance where the difference between being a competent comedian and being like a next level, like Usama's so fucking funny, dude, like so fucking funny, right? Like if I was like a big name, I wouldn't have Usama fucking open for me. Fuck that. I love Usama, really? But he'd murder.
No, I would love that, because here's the other part of it. If you do bomb, wouldn't it be nice if they got to see someone that didn't?
Oh, I would. You know? I will. Like, so. Here's the thing: is I wouldn't bomb. Like that. But like that is like the process of like, you know, sometimes where people think is like they have people coming out to see them. They have a headlining relationship with that club, right? That was very hard to get. They don't want that the booker be like, oh, like he came and he did pretty good, but the opener actually like showed him out, like blah, blah, blah. And they don't get back to you. They won't have you back for maybe another year or something like that. Cause then it's raw economics. It's not some like artistic stuff. It's like business stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I don't know, man. This is tough for me because I've never killed a room like a Godfrey level, like, you know, like those kind of massive jokes. And I wonder how much of that is skill, how much of that is timing, how much of that is just like, you know, where does that really come from, you know?
Dude, I think it just comes from like confidence. Like when Godfrey's on stage, I mean, he's not doing like a ba-doom-doom, you know what I'm saying? Like he's doing like, he's just in his fucking element. Right. And the creativity that happens for him is like the same kind of creativity you have when you don't know how you're going to finish a sentence before you start it, right? But you end up saying something really like, you know, kind of poignant and stuff like that. It's like that times 10. And he's been doing comedy for 20 years, you know, like, and he hasn't just been doing like, like the same thing. I remember I saw Godfrey go up the same night of the Game of Thrones finale. There's like 20 minutes on Game of Thrones, just talking about it. But he learned his rate of speech, all this other stuff. It was just, he was in that moment. There was a concept of like presence. Yeah. Like he's like there, like that audience is like feeling him in that way. Right. And the way I call it is like the difference between a magician and a wizard. Like a magician is somebody who performs tricks, right? And that's like the standard, like, hey, you think it's this, misdirection? Like, you know, and then a wizard where they're just like up there and they're basically so good at being themselves.
So it's organic.
It's organic and you feel it. And, you know, and this is the thing is like Godfrey will kind of lose him a little bit. Like they won't go like last super hard. He's not killing the whole fucking time, but he gets them right back or he doubles down and there's a kind of the intuition of maybe I just need to go farther, or maybe I need to pull back a little bit or whatever like that. And it's happening in his head in real time. Right. Whereas, you know, if you're so caught up with just doing your jokes, you know, like you're bigger than your jokes. Always you're bigger than your jokes. And your jokes are just a conduit for people to experience you're funny. Right. But as long as you think your jokes are what make you funny, you're going to fucking lose. You're going to always, you're not going to be as funny as a Yamanika who can just get up there and fucking murder and off of just somebody doing something weird in their audience. Right. And I think that there's a joy that comes from being funny in the moment that.
Yeah, but again, that goes back to, are you funny? You know? Yeah. So like you said, you got to think you're funny. You got to get through that whole process, blah, blah, blah. But again, if for someone like me who like just doesn't talk a lot when there's not a microphone, and who's just standing in line at a bank or in a restaurant, I'm not the small talk guy. You know, I'm better at it now than I used to be, but I'm just not that guy. I'm just the quiet, sit alone, say nothing for hours kind of guy. So when those kind of moments hit, a person like a Yamanika or a Godfrey or some of these like very natural, conversational, charismatic people, like of course they can fucking ebb and flow through that shit. But for someone like me, I feel like I would just buckle and be like, all right, well, my comfort zone here is to just say nothing, you know, which is kind of like, all right, well, that's not entertaining, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, none of this is natural, right? Even your natural state wasn't natural. That's just some fucking, you, like, found a lane early on, and you're like, all right, man, I'm like the weird Muslim kid or whatever. Like, I'm not going to talk that much. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was your fucking lane, right? So, like, everybody finds their lane early, and it's up to us then. Are you going to choose the identity that was presented to you, or are you going to make your fucking own? And it's just like, yeah, you're going to have a bunch of fucking awkward moments. Dude, in law school, I was bombing in conversation all the fucking time. Like, you know, I'll take a conversation too far or whatever, fuck them. Like, you know, I used to ride around in Uber pools and just try out new school shooter jokes and shit and watch my Uber rating fucking tank. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. Everything was just performance for the stage. So if you just turn everything into kind of like a conduit for that, you're going to be funny in no time.
Right. Yeah, fuck, man.
I would just say this. I would stop saying that you're not a funny person and just accept that you're funny. You know,
well, you have to. Otherwise, why do this?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Just accept it. Just be like, yeah, I'm funny. Sometimes I fuck up and shit. Like, you know, I'm a funny motherfucker.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right about the recreating a persona, for lack of a better word. Because like I could totally be a fucking whole different person on stage.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, especially using my voice and like just kind of exuding basically a character piece. That would be fun to develop, but I don't know. Like maybe I just don't have that wheelhouse yet, or I don't know what I'm waiting for to like find it, or maybe I got to see an act to be like, oh, I could do something like that.
Well, one of the things is you have a very nice sounding voice. It sounds very authoritative, not authoritative, but like very
commanding.
Informative. Yeah, it's commanding and what you need to figure out is your funny riffing,
right?
Like, you know, like that different tone that you're like, blah, blah, blah. I'm super excited about this shit kind of like stage. And you probably already have it. What I'd do is like, whenever you're hanging out with old friends or your friends that you make laugh talk on the phone, I would like record the conversation with their permission or whatever, and then figure out what that voice sounds like, and then figure out how to get your voice there, because so much of who we are follows our voice. Like, and this is one of the things I teach with like game and stuff is like, you know, a lot of guys are like, I'm super funny. I don't know why I don't fuck chicks. Well, your funny voice is different than your like seductive, sensual voice, right? They're like, you don't. I doubt Dave Chappelle sounds the same on stage as he does in the bed, right? And so what you have to do is you have to find that place, because a lot of time our character of who we are follows how we sound, right? Like, do you speak another language?
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of. What other?
Not well, but I mean, I can speak Farsi. I can speak Azeri, which is like a Turkish dialect for mostly northern Iranians. And then I used to be fluent in Italian, but definitely don't know any of that shit anymore. And I think that's it, yeah.
So, like, did you notice that, like, when you were speaking Italian, that, like, maybe you were, like, a little different sometimes, or sounding different, kind of, like...
Well, I would try to sound Italian,
yeah. And that, like, so a lot of people say that they have, like, a different identity to different languages they use to speak because they sound different. It's how we relate to ourselves. So it's just like, yeah, man, I just, like, fucking find your fucking funny voice and just be like...
Yeah, no, it's a work in progress, man. Because
it probably works against how you have to sound to patients, too. That was, like, for me, like, one of the hard parts was I was getting up on stage and I was talking like this. It's not funny. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was giving my TED Talk voice, like, blah, blah, blah. That's not fucking, people don't fuck with that. Like, they're like, why are you, like, and so you want to get that fucking, where they fucking like you.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it with the commanding voice thing, because I don't feel commanding. I feel like just a meek piece of shit.
Yeah.
Right. But then when they hear that with the voice, like, it doesn't really make sense. So it's like, what's going on up there? You know?
And also you have an issue that kind of I have a little bit too, in that, like, dude, no one can tell what the fuck they're supposed to think about you before you get on stage. Like a fat motherfucker, they're like, oh, this is a fat motherfucker, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like some fucking like flannel shirt, like hipster motherfucker, that's that. But your identity is complex, which is going to benefit you later on. But right now, the surface layer shit, nah, because it's going to take you a while to get into who you are. Like, part of, like, you know, like, if I'm like, sometimes the audience will be like, is this fucking dude bullshitting? Because, like, I'll talk about, like six of the thing, all fucking real, but, like, it's just, it's so weird to get in. Right. Yeah, it's like, and you don't have time to unpack it that way. And if I'm not doing stand-up a lot, I don't do it correctly, right? And so you're like you're a person who I think when you start doing hours is gonna feel a lot better than a 5-minute set. You're gonna be one of those people, because it's like you have a lot of different shit to talk about. That's how do I reduce all of that to like a hey, you know? And so, like, you know, and I would look for spaces to get to that space as quick as possible. Like for you, I would definitely do Edinburgh next year, and I'll talk to you about how to like do all that. Like, but like it's like do a show out there and do an hour. You're gonna be like, oh fuck.
How are you supposed to do an hour?
Oh, it's like literally. I went to Edinburgh.
Just ask somebody like, "Hey, you mind if I use this space for an hour and somehow fill it with people?"
Yeah, that's exactly what you do. That's exactly how Edinburgh works. That's exactly that. Literally, and you go out there, you fucking hustle, you get people out to the fucking show. You have to do it every day, and you have a dope name for your show or whatever, so people will naturally buy tickets and shit. But yeah, I was like out there every day, fucking hustling for a show. Me and my friend Brendan Lemon, and his was the Prophet of Doom. We went alternated every other day, same time every day for a fucking month. I went there with 12 minutes. Ended up having a fucking pretty good hour at the end of it, and like growing as a comic, and like really having people really be moved by my comedy and kind of discovering who I was in a way in which I would have never done so in Chicago or here, because I'm only getting like 5-8 minutes, maybe 15 minutes tops. And
well, couldn't you make your own show here and do an hour?
I've made my own show here. I run a show West Side, but it's still not the same. You're not gonna you don't get the everyday component. Sorry, you don't get the everyday practice, right? So when for example, like Ari Shaffir, like you'll run into a lot of headliners who go out there to work out their hour because it's like every day you're just like fucking figuring it out. Whereas even if you ran your own show here, that's like a at most weekly show, and running a weekly show here is intense.
Yeah.
Like, there's all the shit you have to fucking worry about. And then on top of it, you're not booking anybody else. You're just relying on you. Like that's, it's just easier to go to a place where that is expected. Right. That's a culture, and that you're going there specifically for that.
Right. I guess it would be probably even easier if the audience is built in enough where you could just command like, hey, I'm putting on a show. Show up, fuckers.
Yeah.
Like, that would be.
Well, there's 250,000 people who fly into Edinburgh for the thing. Have you watched Hannibal Goes to Edinburgh?
No.
Oh, okay, so like if you want to know what it's about, watch that. It's the amazing documentary. You end up because you're going up on other people's shows too, so you're going up 4 or 5 times a day, plus you're going up on your own show for an hour, and you're fucking tired of, like at the end, bro, you're like, fuck comedy.
Right.
But like at the same time, you're getting a massively international audience, and people are there they're walking around expecting to get closed on going to a show. It's not like you're walking around in Midtown where people are like, I got a fucking job and I'm trying to fuck this bitch, blah blah blah. No, people are all there to see as many shows as possible in this time in Europe, and everybody's there to see comedy.
Right. No, that makes sense. All right, yeah, let's talk about it, man. But let's wrap this section up. It's been a little over an hour now. Why don't you tell us where we can find you one more time?
Dude, you can find me at Bill Petit on Instagram. As honestly, all the same shit he said. And then I have a YouTube channel. It's called Frame Control right now, but I'm going to rename it. I'm in
Frame Patrol?
Frame Control. So it's about like...
Frame Control?
Yeah, so it's about basically controlling the perception of things in conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, and but yeah, that's it.
Gotcha. All right, man. Thanks for coming. Hey, and
yeah,
absolutely. And we'll do the sneaker thing, and then we'll get out of here.
All right, sounds good.
Peace.